Okay, we are week 5 instructional videos. This is going to be a 3-part series on Thomas Arnold. This would be 5A. Here we go. Hello and welcome back to the Agon Institute instructional video. And this series we're talking about models of 21st century sports ministry. And we've come out of the last few weeks where we've talked a lot about the ancient world. It was a review of our course that we teach in the Agon Institute on the first centuries and the first few centuries. And it gave us a platform of which we now begin to build on. And we saw how the Greeks and the Romans and the Jewish traditions thought about sport, and there was a lot of body, mind, and spirit concept that was there. And we're going to see that built upon now today and for the next number of weeks as we go forward, and about how our modern day sports ministry models is often very much influenced about that. We start today by talking about Thomas Arnold. Thomas Arnold was a headmaster in England in the early to mid 1800s. You've been given, or should have been given, a hard copy of some PowerPoint notes of which we're asking you whether you're taking this for credit for a seminary, Bible school, or a university, or as a certification student, that you take these and you fill in the blanks and you take your other notes. Your notes should be geared towards your models as you begin to perceive from these models that we're learning from the future that you would have as you create your model in the 21st century. And the pictures that you're going to see are both the artist renderings of Rugby School and also some real life pictures that I've taken as I did my field research at Rugby School. And so let's jump in, and on the first sheet, the first page there, you'll see a number of references there that we've consulted with and would recommend for you to read. And for those of you that are taking this for a credit, you know that some of your credit is due to your work in quad groups, your 3 reading partners and yourselves. And you might want to take as your book for your quad reading a book on Thomas Arnold. On your second sheet there, we're going to talk about Arnold's early life and some of the formational things for him as a person. Obviously born 1795, and his father then died 6 years later when Thomas was 6, and he died at a heart attack at age 40, his father did. This left Thomas as a young man bereft of that male influence in his life, and it is thought by many of us that this is what really influenced Arnold in terms of his later years and him becoming this mentor to other young men. He realized that he had a need of that. He was bereft of that, and so he wanted to do that for others. Well, he was educated at the finest schools in that era, and he began teaching at age 25. So you can see that he right away began to have education as a huge part of his life. Now this brings up maybe one of the first models that you might want to consider for yourself, and that's Christian education, the Christian school movement. A number of years ago, not a number of years, as a year or two ago, I was invited by our brothers and sisters in the Seventh-day Adventist movement to come and speak to all their coaches, athletic directors, and physical education teachers. And part of what I was unaware of was that while they've been around hundreds of years in terms of their academics, that it's only been a few decades that they've actually done sport at any kind of interscholastic or intercollegiate level. And already within that short history, they began to run into all kinds of ethical dilemmas with a deeply spiritual group of people using the Bible as their foundation. And so what we see is that there is a huge need even within the Christian school movement, for people to go in and have a solid theological foundation, level 1, out of which they can develop their level 2 philosophical principles. And then out of that emerges their methodological models. And so this was very much part and parcel of what was going on with Thomas Arnold. And in this era, he was moving towards the schools. And he was moving in such a way that we can learn from him. And maybe in this course and in this section of this course, God's getting a hold of somebody who's watching this video, taking this course. You thought you were going to become a pulpit preacher. You thought that you'd signed up for seminary for other things, but maybe God's been saying, no, Christian school, become the headmaster at a Christian school or an athletic director or a coach. This might be a model. This is a 21st century model that you can consider. Well, let's move on to your next PowerPoint slide there, and you can begin to see his own personal family, that is Arnold's family. His wife, which she was 4 years older than Arnold, and I recommend that, as my wife is too. And she bore him 7 children, and not unusual in that era, one of them did not live into adulthood. And his grandchildren included the Huxley brothers, Julian and Algius of the Brave New World, and all of them adored him. Now, one of the things that is going to be a consistent theme in this models course is looking at the family life and the personal lives of these people that we're studying in this movement. And we want you to know that there's some good models and there's some not so good models. Arnold was a great model. Family was important. Kids were important. Grandkids, they adored him. What are you going to do in terms of your family model in the 21st century? We'll talk more about that as we go forward. Let's move to him then becoming a headmaster. He began to teach, and then he began to become a headmaster. Think in the America mindset, think principal or maybe superintendent. He started then at Laleham, and he spent 10 years there developing his educational principles. And you'll see on your PowerPoint slide, a picture of Rugby School. And in that turret, that would be up where his office actually was, up on the top. And he developed his educational principles at Laleham and began to really push them out at Rugby School. He was concerned that he was not ordained. He felt like he should have been. And he ended up becoming ordained because he wanted to found his educational policies on Christian faith. And he also wanted to administer the sacraments. You see, he believed that school was first and foremost a place for character formation and only secondarily a place for learning and study. For him, he had to set the religious and moral tone first. That religious instruction came first. And it's only out of that can you then actually grab hold of the other things and make sense of the other things. And for him, gentlemanly conduct would be second. And only after that, the intellectual development. Now, it's not that he dismissed or thought that the intellectual was unimportant. It's just that it became better after these other two things. And it could only be good if these other two things were present. So, you can see that he began to conceptualize his philosophies based upon theologies. Well, after a great stint at Laleham, he was then selected from 50 candidates to be then the headmaster at Rugby School. Now that's where we'll pick it up in our next segment. But what I want to end this one with is to call again, how are you taking these concepts and these things of the past and forming your own models for the 21st century? Perhaps for you, the Christian school movement or coaching is in the future. Perhaps for you, some other models about marriage and family have begun to percolate. Well, we'll move on to the next part of Thomas Arnold next time. This is Dr. Greg Linville for the Agon Institute of Sports Ministry. Thanks for joining us.